Welcome to another program in our series, Free Thinking Forum. Our concern today arises from a decision of the United States Supreme Court. And one of the members of the Supreme Court, he lived from 1856 to 1941, Louis Brandeis. He had great wisdom in saying, we can either have democracy in this country, or we can have great wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we can't have both. It's time we wake up to this, and I'm glad to say I have with me today Barbara Gerten. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, good to be here.
Who is quite active in Move to Amend, amending the Constitution to get rid of this problem of wealth in the hands of a few dominating government, putting our democracy at great risk. Barbara, I understand you have the support of most of the Republicans, 81%, most of the independents, 78%, most of the Democrats, 85%. There should be limits on the amount of money corporations, unions, and other organizations can contribute to outside organizations trying to influence campaigns for U.S. President, Senate, and House. What should we do about it?
Yes, most of the public is behind us. That was a poll from 2012. The politicians aren't with us yet. So Move to Amend, in 2009, they were meeting in anticipation that the Citizens United decision would come down. And so they began thinking of a two-track approach.
What's that?
So one is to call for an amendment.
Amendment to the Constitution.
Amendment to the U.S. Constitution.
That takes 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, and 3/4 of the states to agree on it.
Right, that's one way to get it passed. And I'd like to tell you what that amendment would include, because the Move to Amend amendment is different from all the other amendments that have been proposed. And that is that they wanted the U.S. Constitution to unequivocally state that inalienable rights belong to human beings only. And I define human beings as those with belly buttons. So they are the ones that have natural persons. And that money is not a form of protected free speech under our First Amendment, and it can be regulated in political campaigns.
So you're calling for an amendment to the U.S. Constitution to unequivocally state that inalienable rights belong to human beings only, and that money is not a form of protected free speech under the First Amendment, and can be regulated in political campaigns.
So we have that really narrowed down to corporations are not people and money is not speech.
And so democracy of, by, and for the people is what you're...
Well, that's the second strategy. So yes, in order to have democracy by and of for the people, we need to make it very clear in our U.S. Constitution what that means. But to build a vibrant democracy, we need to really engage lots of people. We believe this is a long-term movement. This is not something that's going to happen in 2-3 years. So Move to Amend is really working to position themselves for a 10-year, hopefully, success. And during that 10 years, we are studying, we are putting together plans in order to engage more and more people who have not had voices at the table, marginalized folks, people of color.
In order to win the support of members of Congress.
Well, that too, but let's say we do get this passed. In the end, we want participatory democracy.
Yes.
And if we haven't brought people along practicing democracy, we won't be ready for it. So
right.
it's a two-track approach. So we are studying right now various movements from the past, suffragist movement, the civil rights movement, labor rights, civil rights, all of those movements, and drawing from that what was successful, what worked, what didn't work, and trying to then put together a plan. We'll be putting together a plan here in Minnesota on how we are going to build that democracy movement here.
Good. Now, I understand that our U.S. House Representative Nolan had introduced this House Joint Resolution 48 in April 28th of 2015 that does provide for that amendment, the two parts of it.
That's right.
Section 1, the right protected by the Constitution of the United States are rights of natural persons only.
That's right.
No artificial entities.
No.
And then the Section 2, that federal, state, and local governments shall regulate, limit, or prohibit corporations and contributions and expenditures, including a candidate's own contributions and expenditures, to ensure that all citizens, regardless of their economic status, have access to the political process, and that no person gains as a result of that person's money, substantially more access or ability to influence in any way the election of any candidate for public office or any ballot measure. So, and it also prohibits the judiciary from construing spending of money to influence elections as speech under the First Amendment.
Which came out in Citizens United.
Yes.
So Representative Nolan is carrying our bill.
And
so he's introduced it. We have, we think Minnesota really rocks because we have Representative Ellison as a co-sponsor, and in September, Representative McCullum has come on as a sponsor.
And there are sponsors from other states.
There are. So there's a total of 14, including Representative Nolan.
Good.
And 4 of those have come on in October. So there's actions by the national organization to find more and more representatives around the country.
Sounds like it's getting rolling.
It is getting rolling, yes.
And what's the focus now?
Well, I want to go back to how an amendment does get made, if I could go back to there, because 2/3 of Congress can propose an amendment. Of each house. So this is the proposed amendment.
Yeah.
So this is what they're proposing, but 2/3, it has passed by 2/3, both House and Senate. So that's one way. Or 2/3 of the states can call for a constitutional convention to come up with amendment language. So that's 2/3.
I think the politicians are afraid of that.
Well, they will never get to that because they would not give up their power as an elected official to send it to a constitution.
States calling for a constitutional convention can, in effect, scare members of Congress into endorsing this.
Well, in fact, that's how the Article 5 of our U.S. Constitution says that amendments can be made. So in the state, Senator John Marty has introduced our bill. It was introduced in 2013. It passed in the Senate. It did not pass in the House. So we have a biennial session. So then it needs to be reintroduced again. And in the House.
In 2017.
No, it can be introduced in 16. This coming session.
Okay.
So that's the second year of the next session here in Minnesota. And in the House, we have Senator Raymond Dean. He's from Minneapolis. He's the one that's the lead sponsor of our bill there.
Good.
So we're hoping. So that is the other way that this can be brought towards a amendment, and that is that the states can petition Congress to come up with an amendment. And ours says, or call a constitutional convention. So ours really has teeth in it. It says they have to do something.
Yeah.
So once the 2/3 metric is met, then it has to come back and be ratified. So that's a higher level, so that's 3/4. So 3/4.
Wait a minute. Ratified by the House and Senate again?
Yes. So
Really?
So then it comes back to be ratified by 3/4 of the states.
Oh, 3/4 of the states.
States,
Yeah.
back to the legislatures, or state conventions, which will never happen. But so it's a two-step process. That's why it's very rigorous, and we feel very confident that ours is one that the people understand and it resonates with them. Corporations are not people. Most everyone we talk to will say, yeah, I don't understand how anyone could have thought that corporations were people. But that idea has been around since 1886. So it's not new. It was not new with Citizens United. In 1886, there was a case, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. And in that case, it wasn't decided in a hearing. The judge walked into the courtroom and said something like this: "This case is not about corporate personhood, but we are of the opinion that corporations are people." That was put in a head note by the court reporter, and in following years, it was cited as decided.
Big mistake.
So it was very convoluted the way it came in. So from 1886, corporations then have constitutional rights. We're born with constitutional rights,
Yeah,
inalienable rights.
But corporations shouldn't have that.
They shouldn't, but they do. So
Because
they have
of that,
been because
that
of
mistake by a federal judge way back then.
well, and back then they had railroad interests, and this was a railroad case. So there was some influence there. So the constitutional rights, there's been cases all along since then that have been giving corporations constitutional rights: free speech, search and seizure protections, due process. It goes on. And that you can go to our website, and there's lots of information that will help you to understand.
That's simply move to amend with no spaces.org.
That's right.
Good.
All right, thank you.
So,
go ahead.
I think we've explained to people what needs to be done, and recognize that it's going to take a while.
Mm-hmm.
We got to have a long-term years of work on this.
That's right, because right now we have had 16 states weigh in, but that's half of what is needed.
Are there some more states we can help along there?
Well,
Iowa, North Dakota, South Dakota?
Yeah, I don't know I haven't seen the list of
Wisconsin?
states for a while, but there are 16 states that have weighed in, not with our language, but very specifically on the campaign finance regulation that they want built into the amendment.
But we need both.
But we need both. So we're standing out there kind of alone, pushing both.
both
They're
bases,
saying we need
yeah.
both. And when you talk to people, they do understand that. 600 communities in the U.S. have had ballot measures or some other way of weighing in on this. In every case, they have supported the need to do something about this.
So even cities have been calling for this?
Yeah, and so it's in Minnesota, 3 cities. The city councils of Duluth, Minneapolis, and St. Paul have all voted supporting the move to amend resolution.
The city council?
The city councils.
Okay.
Right. They have done that. So, so here we need to engage more constituents in asking our state senators and our state representatives to get behind John Marty's bill and Representative Dean's bill. And those two people need to hear that this is an important issue for people in the state of Minnesota. And at the national level, we've already talked about the 3 here in Minnesota, but the help that we could use here is that we don't have a senator yet introducing our bill.
Oh.
So I'd love it if
need,
we could encourage.
Senator Amy Klobuchar, Senator Al Franken.
That's right.
Yeah.
So it'd be nice if constituents, and that's